Buenas tardes y bienvenidos
Good
de nuevo a la
afternoon,
sala
everyone,
número 3 de
and
Madrid
welcome to
Platform.
room
Espero que
3.
hayáis disfrutado
I
mucho
hope
de la comida
that you
o del
enjoyed your
desayuno
meal
para
or your
nuestros
breakfast
compañeros de
for
América
our
Latina.
colleagues
Y
in
sobre
Latin
todo que
America,
hayáis
and
recargado las
I
pilas,
hope
porque
you're
aunque ya
fully
estamos terminando,
energized,
todavía nos
because
queda
even if we're
mucho
finishing
contenido en
today,
este bloque de
there are lots
clase.
of
En
comments in
primer
this
lugar,
afternoon
para
session.
empezar con
So
la
first,
jornada,
we
vamos
will
con un seminario
listen to
internacional
an
de
international
infraestructuras
seminar
y edificación,
on
una sesión dinámica en
infrastructures
la que
and
explicaremos por
sustainable
qué Madrid
constructions,
es
a
la
dynamic
capital
session
mundial de
where
la
we will
construcción,
explain why Madrid is the
ingeniería,
world capital of
arquitectura y
construction,
cómo las
engineering,
empresas
architecture,
españolas
and
han
why and
conseguido
how
liderar los mercados
Spanish companies have
internacionales.
managed to
En
lead
este bloque, que
international
vamos a
markets
estar
in this
unas 2
block
horitas
that
casi,
will last
vamos a tener
around
3
2
tipos de
hours. We will
contenido.
have
Bueno, 2
three
tipos. En primer
types
lugar,
of
vamos a empezar con
presentations.
una
First,
presentación
we're going
y
to
luego
have
vamos a tener 2 mesas
lecture
redondas que os iré comentando
by
a medida que
my
avance la
2
sesión.
colleagues on the
Y para empezar
next
con
to me, and then we will
con el
have
bloque de
2
construcción,
round
tendremos la
tables. To begin with
presentación
the
Madrid,
construction block,
capital
we will
mundial
have
de
the
la
presentation
construcción,
Madrid,
ejemplo para una
World
colaboración
Capital of
público-privada,
Construction,
visión
an
desde
example
2
for
perspectivas. Y
public
para abordar
partner,
esta temática tenemos con
public-private
nosotros a David
partnership,
García Núñez, que
and
es
to that end we
presidente
have
de
David
Madrid
García
Capital Mundial
Núñez.
de la
He's
Construcción y
president
director de
of the
comunicación de
MWCC,
EFCC, y a David
as
Soya
well as
Navarro,
communication
coordinador
manager
de
of
Madrid
FCC,
Capital
and
Mundial de la
David
Construcción
Soya Navarro,
y técnico
coordinator of
economista del Ayuntamiento de
MWCC
Madrid.
and an
Bienvenidos y
economist
muchísimas
from
gracias.
Madrid City Council. Welcome, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much. I will now introduce you, David. Thank you all, the people who are watching, because we think that this meeting point is very important. It is relevant to explain why Madrid is a capital of engineering, construction, and architecture. David Soy, in addition to being my friend, is part of the DG of economy of the Madrid City Council, and he's a member of MWCC. He's one of the founding father of this project that started almost 4 years ago, and in the last year we've grown exponentially. David, in addition, well, you will introduce me now, but first, what I want us to talk about is how this idea came to life, the idea of creating a hub to represent the world of construction, engineering, and architecture in Madrid. Well, thank you, David, and before we go on, I will introduce you, David García Núñez. He's the Communications Director at FCC. He's also the President of the Madrid World Capital of Construction, Engineering, and Architecture since it was created in March 2020. We are close friends, and we have been leading the association this year, and this has brought us even closer during a very difficult year, by the way. Now, regarding your question, public administrations aim at improving the lives of citizens through economic growth and through boosting those sectors where economy can become, where we can find a competitive edge from an economic perspective. And in that regard, our DG identified several sectors where we had this competitive edge. For example, big data, among others. But the other sector that we thought was quite consolidated in the city, and a sector that we thought was a little bit left aside was the construction sector, and that's why we started to meet with the different social agents to understand the markets, their demands, and how we could help from our institution to promote these activities. It's not just construction, by the way. The construction companies that are present here are not just blue-collar workers. We have engineers, we have architects, we have other professionals, so a highly qualified staff. We were seeking 2 characteristics to boost the city. First, the intensive use of technology, and then highly qualified staff, which is a type of professional profile that is better paid and therefore can achieve a better quality of life. So we should understand from what you're saying that since 2016, the Madrid City Council decided to generate a cluster with the aim of emphasizing the city and the world of construction in the city. And on March 4th, on March 14th, we were all sent, or we were all in a lockdown. It was the official lockdown. And that is why I need to really thank Ferrovial, Acciona, Construcía, FCC, the company I belong to, SACIR, San Jose, COMSA, all the companies that have shown their strong commitment towards this project that has been promoted by Madrid City Council, and where public and private institutions have taken part. The importance of this project, in addition to other associations that exist. Well, don't steal the question from me. That's the question I was about to ask, actually. So we started to talk about the agents. Why did you find this offering or this proposal interesting, and what is the differentiating element from other associations? That's actually what I was going to answer. PPP, public-private collaboration, and a cross-sectional approach. We are directly collaborating with the DG of Infrastructure of Madrid City Council, the regional government of Madrid, and other public stakeholders in projects that improve the quality of life of citizens. What better actors than construction companies, because we've built here the best infrastructures and gone abroad also to generate and create and build technically complex infrastructures with this Spain brand, and also transparency in the execution of our projects. And that's our strength to make them happen. Yeah, because the goals of this association, in a broad sense, if I'm not mistaken, are boosting the sector, consolidating the positioning of Spanish companies abroad, and turning Madrid, or making Madrid a benchmark worldwide. We were talking about a family who discovered a Caravaggio. And here in Madrid, we do have many artists that were hidden. Unfortunately, our sector is not it's not promoting the strength that engineers have here and our ability to develop projects abroad and also in Madrid. When I say that in Madrid we have the largest urban tunnel in the world, people don't know that. That's Calle 30. The CEO, Rosalía, knows that. But when you tell people that the largest cavern in Madrid is on the Plaza del Sol Square, people are unaware of that. So the idea is that with the help of all the companies that participate in the association and their collaboration, we have managed to publish a white paper on the infrastructures built by Spanish companies. And on the other hand, in addition to creating this Spanish brand, Spain brand, and a brand for our sector, we have to work on the development of infrastructures that are sustainable and that can be replicated abroad. I will talk a little bit about Madrid as well, because that's my area of expertise, but I will ask you, how do you see the infrastructures here in the city with regard to other capitals in the world? We are leaders in Madrid. We're leaders in the metro network, high-speed connection, this radial network where we communicate in high-speed train infrastructures, and I go from Chamartín to the northern area of the country or to the south from Atocha. Of course, China is ahead of us for obvious reasons. And in high speed, we are leaders. But I could go on with the metro network. We are currently executing the largest metro contract, which is line 456 in Riyadh. But our metro network and the expansion that we did is even larger. I think Madrid has incredible opportunities and infrastructures that put us at the forefront of exposing this Spanish brand that the Madrid City Council and the citizens demand of us, and the talent from our university students as well. Our association has a unique feature. Google was created at a university. And when you say this, people look at you with strange face. But we need to attract the university. There are 6 universities: Navarra, San Pablo Feu, Alfonso X, Polytechnical University of Madrid, and Madrid European University. I think I'm not forgetting any. We have 6 universities that are part of the association to place value on this university talent in the labor market. That top engineers can access the labor market, that they have that opportunity. The same goes for architects. But, there is a lag or a loss of vocation in the sector. At the association, are you currently working on boosting that? Of course we are. And in fact, we partner with Global Safer with 2 initiatives. A contest where 370 participants decided to participate, and many of them from companies who will take part in the roundtables, as here, among others. And these people, they decided to submit the candidacy to be the best engineers and architects under 35. So we place value on talent. We are signing collaboration agreements with universities so that these students, engineers or architects or economists like yourself, can access the labor market, and there is this gateway, this expressway, where we can incorporate talent within the sector in Spain or on any of the projects that we're developing abroad. And now I will ask you, but just allow me to say something about the city, because we've talked about the transport infrastructure, but we haven't talked about the airport, a fantastic airport, 14 kilometers from Madrid city center, 25 minutes on subway, that will very soon connect to the high-speed train network, very well communicated through car, through taxi, through buses. But I wanted to also emphasize the value of the city and how it is a pole for attraction in terms of investment and of talent. What we want to promote is the great infrastructures that we have in terms of telecommunications. We have a fiber extension that is larger than Germany, France, Great Britain. Madrid is a leading city in optic fiber, in download times, upload times. And this is really important. This is key right now because we are working remotely. And without these technical possibilities, it would have been impossible for our companies to develop or to execute their activities normally in these COVID times that we're living in. So what do you think about the quality of life here in the city? And with that, we will finish the Madrid section. Well, the quality of life here in Madrid, it's not something that I say. It's what I said the other day in an interview at Expansión. It attracts investment. We have Mexican, Venezuelan, Latin American investors who are watching probably through the streaming channel. Why do they come to Madrid? Because there is a tax and legal framework that is very stable, that provides an environment that is favorable to investment, that allows them to invest in those targets or marketplaces where they really want to invest. Secondly, the value with regard to the quality of life, if you compare with any international indexes. Madrid is on the top 10 of better cities to live. What do you still need to finalize, to fine-tune new urban developments to rebalance this imbalance that exists between the northern and the southern area of Madrid so that people can aspire to live and reside in Madrid. Well, regarding the attraction of investment, I would like to also mention the availability of office space in the city. There are great offices. Urban developments or neighborhood developments are also in the rise. Refurbishment of offices that were updated. The price on the business district areas is lower than in London or New York. Spanish professionals are highly appreciated everywhere, and in Spain at a lower cost than, for example, opening an office in Berlin, in London, or in France. So offices, professionals, infrastructures. Madrid and Spain has it all for attracting investment. I wanted to ask, what do we need is in store? What do we need to do at MWCC? Well, I guess that's the companies. That's for the companies to say. As an association, what we want to be is a vehicle for proposals that come our way. That's what we're trying to collect in our work groups, and that's why it is so important to encourage participation, because in those work groups, we don't develop the projects that we think are correct, but the projects that are proposed by the representatives of the companies. And that is what we really want to work on, to meet expectations of the members, that are many, by the way, and sometimes they're a bit complicated, challenging. And now we're working with Acciona, with a good friend of mine, that is Madrid. In the west. Yes, you're correct. It's a area of Barrio El Pilar. I call it the northern part of Madrid, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a western area of M30 in Madrid. It's also a project in which we are working with some of the companies that are part of the association. We've also expressed interest in projects for La Cañada de la Real on Sector 5 and 6. We are also working on other projects that are quite attractive for mobility, for urban mobility, that will produce new scenarios that should be considered by public administrations. That is why I'm a firm advocate of PPP in the public administrations, together with construction companies and engineering and architecture companies as well, that are part of the association. There is also an important aspect we should not forget, and that is sustainability, not just from an environmental perspective, but also from an economic and social perspective. Do you think we are dealing with that properly at the association? Well, what we're doing is trying to establish with the 110 members and collaborating bodies to turn sustainability into a key element with circular economy, development of urban centers. And I'm really upset when I hear that construction is not sustainable, or that construction is not innovative. And it is really painful to see that, in my case, me as a person who needs to communicate part of this information, we have failed to do so, because clearly construction is sustainable. Our projects are subject to a series of audits and controls, and we improve within an infrastructure the environment around that infrastructure. And regarding innovation or digital transformation, construction has prepared for this since the 2008 crisis, since the blow that we received. It was unthinkable in the past to know that whenever you were going to receive a project, they will give you a pen drive. We need to burn those barriers, bring them down to move forward. And now, talking about sustainability, this is a cross-sectional area. We work for specific projects, and we've joined the mobility initiative, the European Mobility Initiative in 2021. We're working on specific projects and in urban developments that allow rebalance in the territory. And within the association, we also have the Ministry of Ecological Transition. We have prepared a survey to understand the contribution of the sector to the SDGs. We've participated in the Good Practices Catalog of Circular Economy. The companies from MWCC, 30% of them come from our company. So I think this is a topic that we are tackling correctly.
We also work hard, and I would like to thank Madrid Platforms for giving us this opportunity. We try to position the sector, the city, and for the people to know what we're doing. Our companies, we owe to our stakeholders, of course, but our ultimate goal is to improve life quality. We develop infrastructures, but the citizen throughout public administration is going to see how their quality of life is improved. There was this advertising campaign that was excellent, that was called 24 Hours with You. Since you leave your house and you commute to work, whether you use your car or subway, and if afterwards you use sports infrastructure, you are being served by different construction companies. In all of this process of configuration of our association, we did over 100 interviews. And one of the key demands of social actors was to show what the sector was doing, and also removing this image of us as being speculators. People weren't aware of how much we contributed to development. It's impossible for a territory, for an area to develop without infrastructures such as roads, allowing for a small settlement to be connected with a larger city throughout a road, for instance, allows them to be connected to a complete new world, and that's why we should be working. I would like to thank the Secretary of Infrastructure and their leaders. They have turned the association into a leader for change. Actually, today we were asked again to publish the mobility survey. They're convinced, and so am I, that through this type of public-public partnerships of building companies and public administrations, together we can reach great projects and improve the citizens' quality of life. Yes, besides many of those projects, we are using them to receive funding from the Next Generation program. You tell about it. Yes, because you've done it. After the unblock after what happened with Germany regarding the blocking of the funding programs, we didn't know where they were going to be approved or not. From the European Commission, they told us that the 19 countries have given their approval to those resources that should fund the funds, and they will be released to every country. Yes, we elevated the letter to the Transport Ministry, to the Ministry of Economy. They gave us their seal of approval, and the response of the President of the Commission was clear. We need to reactivate the sector as an engine for growth for the country's economy. But besides the next generation funds, also the multilateral ones, we need to strengthen the position of our companies in those entities through ISEX, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and with other multicultural entities, not only in Latin America, but also in other places in the world, to open up markets in Asia, for instance, where people have bigger incomes and we have possibility to develop. Yes, we should not forget about Latin America. That's right. Madrid is the head of the association, and I recently read a survey that was done in a Latin American country, and they asked what's the favorite destination for business people. It was first Madrid, and then New York. It's not that we say this, it is the bridge between Europe and Latin America, and we have to take advantage of this. Language is a resource for wealth. It is a great stepping stone to reach there. There are many countries outside of Spain that buy Spanish companies so that they can use them as stepping stones to reach Latin America. I would like to invite our viewers at www.mwcc.com. They can visit us and see what we do. David, how do you see this 2 years from now? How do we see ourselves? Well, after the first phase, where we brought in the largest companies in the sector, now we're entering a second phase. We have energy, industrial companies, universities. When I was talking about the first phase, it was everything that's important for the sector. Universities, research centers such as CSIC, engineering, construction, and infrastructure companies, ancillary services, financial services, academic, investment funds, ICO. Now we're widening into other sectors such as energy sector. And the next phase is the industrial sector. The sky is the limit right now. We currently have the institutional support of the City Council of Madrid, the Madrid region, and mainly the Ministry of Transport and Energetic Transition. And this is an invitation to each and every company that wants to join us in this project for Madrid and for Spain. To finish, I would like to offer a few ideas about our association. It's a private-public partnership. Association is non-profit. We charge the associations for joining, but no one is receiving any income for this. This is our mid and large-size enterprises. Is cross-sectional across all sectors. As I mentioned before, not only construction, but also energy sectors. Something else I'd like to say is that we're not making anything up. Everything's already here. We just want to offer our added value, collaboration and participation. How do you see us, David, in 2 years from now? Do we have time? 1 minute. In 1 minute, I see ourselves doing great as long as we reach the commitment of supporting this private-public partnership and for everyone who wants to join us. Thank you very much, and we're waiting for you here.
Bienvenidos de nuevo a la sala número 3 de Madrid Platform. Seguimos en la sesión de Infraestructuras y Edificación Sostenible. Muchísimas gracias a los dos, David, por este debate que hemos tenido, este coloquio.
Thank you both, David, for this wonderful debate about Madrid's potential in the construction sector. And now we're going to have two roundtables. First, internationalization and positioning of Spanish companies abroad. We have José Manuel Laureda, Director for Business Development in SACIR, Mario Móstoles, Human Resources Director of Ferrovial, Pedro Miguel Rivero, Director for Business Development and Hiring at COMSA, Francisco Ramirez, Building Development Director at San Jose, and Francisco Borja is moderating. He's the President of ASECI.
Good afternoon. Welcome all to this roundtable related to the internationalization of Spanish companies within the Seminar for Infrastructure and Sustainable Construction, organized by Madrid World Capital for Engineering, Construction and Architecture, within the Congress organized by Madrid Platform. It's an honor for me to be here with all of you in this roundtable. We have here José Manuel Laureda, Business Development Director for SACIR, Mario Móstoles, Human Resources Director for Ferrovial, Pedro Miguel Rivero, Business Development and Hiring Director at Comsa Corporation, and Francisco Ramirez, Director for Development at Constructora San Jose, and I represent ASPCI, an association that has companies related to infrastructure, architecture, new technologies, and environment. We're all within the same value chain. Not only building companies, but also engineering companies, project development, construction, and many others. We cannot forget the importance of internationalization for companies and for the whole sector. It's something we must develop. It's important for us to diversify geographically, especially after 2008, when we were hit with the international crisis. It meant that we needed to intensify the strategy, especially for those who hadn't developed it already. We've been encountering many problems. We've been able to face them and solve them. We've gone to many countries, especially in the LATAM area. We have special links that are bonded by our common culture, by our common language, and that's probably why we first ventured into those countries. This roundtable, we're going to talk about all of this. We're going to do so through questioning. We'll try to keep a steady flow of dialogue throughout. I would like to raise the first question that is related to what was mentioned before. Well, after the 2008 crisis that made us have to intensify the globalization, how did you encounter that situation after 2008? It's funny because we're always talking about the crisis of 2008. It was so. Many building companies in Spain had to look abroad. But I want to go back even before. In the case of SACIR, and for me, it was back in the year 1996 when Aznar became president of the government and Spain joined the euro. There was a series of restrictions in Spain. So many Spanish companies, especially SACIR, we saw the need to look abroad.
Y así significó, ¿no? Y la base, realmente la base, fue la reducción de la actividad en España.
And the basis was clearly the reduction of activity in Spain.
Viene motivada por una reducción de
internationalization is caused by a reduction in contracts and in economic activity in our country.
Es una experiencia complicada. Luego la mesa van a surgir.
It's a very complicated experience. We have similar cases in our different companies. But I always want to look back at the end of the 90s, when the largest companies saw this need to look elsewhere. In our case, it was a concession plan by the Chilean administration. That's where we began. We also work in other countries in the area after our initial work in Chile. We can look into the pros and cons, the circumstances of the selection.
se lo leía al presidente de una de las compañías grandes del sector.
There was this saying of one of the big building companies in the world, construction travels poorly. I've been working in this sector for over 25 years in the international sector, and the level of success that we had in Spain is very difficult to see elsewhere. I'm going to give the floor to my other colleagues.
En primer lugar, muchas gracias por invitarme.
Thank you so much for having me.
Llevo trabajando en España un año, llevo 21 años dando vueltas por el mundo.
I've never worked in Spain. I only worked here for a year. I've been working abroad for over 20 years. I can share my particular experience. Back in 2008, as it was said before, one of the companies had already started their internationalization process ever since 1993, when concessions started in Latin America. Then we had a series of acquisitions abroad, and 2008 suddenly arrived. What happened, from my perspective, is overconfidence on behalf of the companies. There was a huge level of debt. So the companies that were already going globally, and those weren't, saw a series of doors being opened, and each one had a different level of panic. We already were present in Canada, US, UK, Latin America, Chile in particular. Having those macro projects in the US and this public-private partnership with a huge amount of equity that was put at risk because an over-acquisition that was produced before, for instance, the airport system in UK. There was a level of debt that was really complicated to solve. I think that's our experience. What it allows us is to reach certain strategic markets that we were already clear about. And for those companies that were lagging behind, they had to perform this internationalization in a more messy way. Pedro Miguel, what was your case? In our case, our starting point is the same thing that my colleague said.
Partimos de la base que nosotros estábamos como CONSA, estábamos internalizados inicialmente.
We were already working at the international level. We didn't have a huge presence, but we had taken a few steps. We were based more in our sector because that's where we felt more comfortable. And the 2008 crisis pushed us into accelerating that process. We have multiplied by 4 the number of countries we were at. And we needed to absorb that disaster that was coming upon us. We were a company with volume, a very good machinery, workers that were very well prepared, thanks to the effort we had done in Spain. So suddenly we had all of this talent, all of this machinery, all of this experience that forced us to go abroad, but it also helped us to be able to go abroad. If all of that expertise in Spain during all these years when we were developing roads, high speed, if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't be strong enough to go abroad. We had to accelerate into international projects. We were more based in our experience as building works on a very developed market, especially surrounding the trains, the train sector. We had to move a lot of machinery, a lot of personnel, a lot of talent, and lots of means of production outside of Spain. That at any given point we had to think that we had emptied Spain from all of this powerful expertise that we had.
And you learn from mistakes. And other times, it's a bit harder to see the lesson, but the truth is that internationalization is something that is within our DNA, of our know-how, and we're really looking forward to seeing this boom again in Spain, because here at home, as we say, we like to eat warm. We like our food, we like our traditions, and that is something that is within our DNA and that is somehow organic to us and to our way of working. Okay, Francisco, what was the case of Constructora San Jose? Well, it was a bit similar to what my colleagues have mentioned. Fortunately, in 2008, we were already present in Latin America. In Argentina, for example, we went there in 1996. In Peru, I think we were one of the first construction companies to make it there through a local company in 2004. Before 2008, we had experience in Uruguay, Paraguay. We had built infrastructure in Panama, United States. We were laying the foundations for some hospital concessions in Chile, and so on and so forth. So what happened in 2008? Well, what we did then was consolidating the positions that we had already gained. And we had a trailblazing role in some of those countries, and throughout those years, there were all kinds of companies. Real estate companies, construction companies, SMEs, engineering, infrastructure companies, contractors. There was a little bit of everything. But I would dare to say that more than in 2008, the real internationalization happened in 2010. In 2014, Latin America became a priority market, and on many occasions, we welcomed and we hosted many of the companies that were just coming to those countries. There were people who did things right, others not so well, but people who came in 2012, 13, 14, they were impatient, and impatience is not a good advisor. Well, I think that's a summary of what you've said. We need to say that the strategy of each of the companies needn't be the same. Each one had its own circumstances, but indeed, 2008 was a moment where we saw a huge economic crisis, but you had already internationalized, so that probably facilitated your development. I wanted to ask you, you said something about it before, mistakes that we've all made when we go abroad and what we've learned from them and what we've incorporated in our subsequent strategies. So what mistakes have you made, if you have made any, of course, when going abroad? Of course, we've made mistakes, but I don't know if this is the best place to talk about our mistakes. International activity is different from our domestic activities, we could say. I would like to tell an anecdote, and with this anecdote, I always like to, or try to show how one leads projects abroad. I am an engineer, and in one of my subjects, concrete, there was a standard, H88, which was like very important standard. And I remember in a concession in Chile, where I started working as the manager of the concession, and I was negotiating with the fiscal negotiator, and I decided to sit with him, and he said, Jose Manuel, haven't you checked point 1745? What are you talking about? In Andalusia, when we developed highways, we did things differently. And there is when you realize the importance and the prevalence of the contract. And with this, I'm not saying one is better than the other, because I'm a great advocate of common sense, something that happens here in Spain and in Madrid, and the prevalence of the work itself, and the prevalence of the need for the infrastructure over the contract. And I could talk about some examples about the famous Panama Canal. So without going into detail, the way in which people work abroad is different. It changes from country to country. And another concept, because I don't want to talk too much, is the concept of the guarantees. In general, this was something that was not deemed so relevant. It wasn't a funnel or a filter, but once you realize, you have this endorsement or this write-offs, and we have the language. We're talking about Latin America, where they have more American influence. So, of course, there's been mistakes. And something that has been said on the table, we've had a reflection process, and as a result, we have insisted in investments in some countries, and in other cases, we have decided to take a step back. And that's where we are right now. Mario, in your case, well, I think just to clarify something, I think that the internationalization strategy has been different, but then we meet somewhere in the middle, so we compete. And that talks about how we do things. About the fact that in the end, infrastructure companies in Spain have an important presence and are competitive regardless of the markets where we are. So going to your question, so mistakes per se in the internationalization process, I think we haven't made many, but we have made mistakes, strategic corporate mistakes, when you don't study things properly from abroad. And what we've learned from that is that what has allowed us to understand the importance of being a stable company with liquidity. And we also are very careful not to put our company at risk, at any financial risk. And what other things that we've learned is like analyzing works from Spain in remote markets and trying to replicate or using the same references that we use in Spain, or even the references of other countries, and bring them to those markets where we are planning to execute a work is not a good idea. And you learn from that. It's true that we haven't grown in countries. We've reduced the countries where we're at. And that is the strategy that we aim to maintain in Latin America, but also in other countries. But I think we still need to deal with some of the things that still need work. Yes, I think that in the past we used to go everywhere, and in the end we've decided to stick with some countries where we've had successful experience. Yeah, there's always a mistake. That's why you need to have several countries, because there are always mistakes that are going to happen. Pedro Miguel, please. A bit in the same line. Well, regarding internationalization, well, the lack of knowledge on laws, tradition, habits, the lack of knowledge of the legal details that we tried to adapt to our reality. We were trying to do abroad things that we did here in Spain, and that's something that is not correct. And we must admit that companies were not as prepared. You were talking about the guarantees, but not only guarantees, the amount, and how to find those guarantees in time. Or, for example, our legal team, because in the past, they knew the law on public contracts by heart, but they didn't know the new reality that they were facing with. So trying to analyze things from our perspective, big mistakes. Lack of knowledge about laws, about habits in all of the countries, each of the countries that we've been at, because each place has its own peculiarities. And even here in Spain, the Ministry of Transport has nothing to do with the Metro of Madrid or the railroad network in Valencia. Everyone's different. We've also tried to compare what we've done in Spain to what happens abroad, like, for example, monitoring systems in any area, legal, finance, etc. I think that the teams that have been mostly reinforced are the financial teams and the legal teams. Because here in Spain, anyone who has executed works in Spain required signing a contract.
Well,
but you could say, well, you've multiplied by 4. But, well, the truth is, truly we've been in 6 countries. So
no es que hayamos contado, el resultado es que lo hemos multiplicado por 4, pero que entre medias hemos ido descubriendo países que
discovered little by little, and with our experience, countries that are very interesting, and others that, due to the circumstances, were not so convincing, or perhaps we weren't convincing to them, and that is something that should also think about. Thank you, Francisco. In your case, mistakes. Well, mistakes, of course, and we still make mistakes. Talking about mistakes, I don't think is too useful. I'd rather talk about lessons learned. And on some occasions, we have underestimated local actors. We have tried to impose our culture, our previous knowledge, and we need to contextualize that most of these Latin countries are countries that focus on exploiting, for example, mines, and there is a great influence, that Anglo-Saxon influence in their process, in their planning, because historically they've been influenced by them. And all of these models have been exported to the construction world, and we've met project managers who came from that world and who had a different experience and have made us sweat when we came from a culture where it is easier to improvise because we have an innate capacity to improvise. And we are bold, and being bold opens many doors, but we've also crashed with the literal character, literal nature of the contracts. Another lesson learned in these years of crisis, we've had cases of expats, technical positions, highly qualified positions, and a professional that is valid in our country can easily adapt to another country, and there we have also learned a lot. And then again, in many Latin American countries, there's something that is very crucial, regardless of the legal framework, regardless of the contract or the license that you have. There is an unwritten social license. You either align with what surrounds the project, and that's something difficult because we were not used to working like that, or projects risk failing, and they don't risk failing due to legal challenges. Indeed, we need to adapt to the reality. What do you think are the features, the main features of a company that wants to internationalize properly and that guarantees success? This, of course, depends of the market, but which are, in your opinion, common features? would say that being cautious, I think that companies in general and the world of construction and infrastructures has become more cautious. We need to anticipate, because it's been said before throughout the participations of my colleagues, there's more rigor now in cost analysis, for example. Making calculations based on Spanish references. When you're talking about countries that have a different point of view, there's another concept, and it's a concept of talent. That is, people that are prepared and are willing to go abroad. In 2009, 2010, I talked to lots of young engineers to send them abroad and to suggest them to embrace internationalization, and that was very complicated. No, my girlfriend, no, I'm getting married. And the truth is that back then, the situation with the crisis kind of facilitated that departure, that interest. But before that, it was not very common to see people who wanted to go abroad. And you also need to have additional controls, because in order to verify that the information that you have is correct, you need to understand the legal features. So you need to have a legal control or legal monitoring scheme so that you know where things are going. These are just general comments, but it's true also that this depends on the market. It's not the same to work in Peru than to work in Canada or in Australia. But these are, I think, the ideas that I would use as example. Mario. I think it's kind of repetitive. I would say planning, not doing things patiently with time. Not everyone who left or who internationalized in 2009. Not everyone who left was an expat. Now we're being much more selective, but we are finding that the profile of civil engineers from Spain is very interesting, and they have lots to contribute with. We are not good sellers, but we do have the talent and the capacity. So the profile of civil engineers right now, it's not the same that existed a few years ago, and the profile of civil engineers right now does not specialize in construction, and that's not a good thing. This is a perfect platform to encourage people to love this career, to love this path, because I think that we will always need in Spain nurture ourselves from local Spanish talent, because they have the know-how and the knowledge, and that is an increasingly rare resource, and we must cherish it. We need to adapt to the local market when we are abroad, and since I've lived it in firsthand, the contracts and everything that has to do with that, to be on top of that from day one. Yes, human resources is your area. Is your area of expertise, but you worked in operations, and it is clear that not everyone is good for any position. And we all get confused, and we don't know where we send people and what. Why?
We need to be flexible to be capable to adapt to the local market. But we have a DNA in infrastructure in Spain. Just have to look at the cost per kilometer. We are the most efficient in the world, very China apart. So we have to seek those countries where we can promote our value. The UK things are 5 times as expensive as here, and they're not any better. We have to find the right balance. Pedro Miguel.
Yo creo que lo primero que hace falta para internacionalizarse
I think the first thing we need to be able to go international is expertise, human talent, and machinery.
Pues ahora mismo podemos planificar un viaje, nos podemos ir de
You can
excursión
just go
a México,
abroad.
nos podemos ir a Turquía.
You can go to Mexico, Turkey, or
Nosotros vamos a trabajar.
China.
Entonces,
But we are not there to travel. We're there to work.
Es que donde vayamos algo
So
tenemos que
the
aportar.
first thing we look
Porque yo al precio no
for
voy a ser
is that
competitivo.
we have
el hormigón
something
viaja
to
mal, por un lado, pero segundo es que endurece.
something extra.
Sí, seguro es que endurece. Entonces, si vas, lo que tienes que ser a ser competitivo y ofreciendo algo.
We need to
Luego,
be
por supuesto, está
competitive
esa parte
and
idílica
to
que todos
offer
buscamos,
something
hombre.
extra.
Joder, pues intentemos que me lo valoren.
We're always seeking
Y te lo
this
valoran,
idea
pero
of
normalmente no se lo valen para
thing.
mucho,
We
porque luego los que
hope that they
tienen
value
candidaturas
this well.
son puramente económicos. O sea,
They
nosotros
might
en nuestros
value
sueños,
it, but in the end,
sí,
it's
porque
always
vamos a una
an
reunión de directores,
economical.
o algo. Oye, sí, vamos a intentar que nos lo valoren.
The economic
Muy bien.
difference.
Estamos
Let's try
todos
for
de
them
acuerdo.
to
Pero por más que tienes que
value
ser-
this,
tienes que
especially.
ser competitivo.
But
Entonces,
you need
o
to be
eres muy
competitive.
especialista en lo que vas,
So either you're
olvídate. El resto ya de
highly
conocimiento local.
specialized
Eso se acaba
in
aprendiendo.
what you do
Pero eso
or
básicamente
forget
lo
about
que
it.
nosotros hemos
Then
logrado
it's
es
local
un poquitín
knowledge.
flexibilidad.
You end up learning this.
Flexibilidad, porque
But
por muchos
mainly
análisis de
flexibility.
riesgos que ya que creo que todos dentro de nuestras empresas sabemos y evaluamos todo tipo de riesgos.
Risk analysis,
técnicos, derivados de la
in our
oferta,
companies,
los
we've
contractuales,
gone through
los
all of them.
económicos, que ya hasta incluso
Contractual
somos capaces
risks,
de ver
economical
cuando puede haber
risks.
alguna debacle económico, alguna
We are
debacle
able to
político,
forecast whether
intentar
there's going to
reaccionar a
be
tiempo.
a political or
Siempre va a
economical
haber algo que
disaster.
te va a sorprender.
There's always going to be
Entonces,
something to
tienes que tener una
surprise you.
organización lo suficiente bien lubricada para
So
poder
you need
responder.
to have
Y
well
segundo, el
lubricated
personal,
machinery.
como habéis dicho antes, el personal que tengamos allí, hay que ilusionarlo.
We have to encourage our personnel that is going to be sent
Y luego ya supongo
there.
que
They
también
need
eso ya
to be
os irá
reliable.
ocurriendo a todos, que ya tenemos la necesidad de que el
And now
personal
we already
que va a estos sitios
have the need
vaya
for
para quedarse.
our people that go there,
vaya para quedarse, porque al
that
fin y al
they
cabo muchas de las
they are
experiencias
going to stay
que
there.
decimos, pues hemos estado trabajando, es que en México llevamos
Because
15
many
años.
of the experiences
que está
that we
bien,
have there,
Y el que tiene
yeah,
todo el
we've been
conocimiento profundo
there
es
for
uno.
15 years.
Y necesitamos que esa persona
Well,
siga
but
allí.
we have one person who has
Creo que
all of the
nuestras
knowledge, and
empresas
we
y
need
más
that person to
los
stay there.
departamentos de recursos humanos
So we need for
tenemos
the
que
Human
intentar
Resources
averiguar a ver
Department
cómo somos
to
capaces
find out
de intentar que
how we
nuestro
can
personal se quede
manage
allí con
that our
esas plazas de
personnel
futuro. Sobre todo, además, viendo que aquí en
stays
España, pues,
abroad,
tampoco un
so
posible
that they have
regreso,
a hope for
porque
a
no hay
future
donde sujetarlo muy
there,
bien.
because there's probably not a lot to offer for them here in Spain.
Para terminar.
Pues coincido plenamente en lo que dice Pedro Miguel, que hace
I
falta
fully agree with
talento y
what
experiencia como
Pedro
valor
Miguel
agregado
said.
pero
We need
después lo que hace
talent
falta
and expertise,
finalmente es paciencia y dinero. Una cosa
but
con la otra.
mainly one needs
La
patience
paciencia
and money.
está
One thing
aparejada
usually goes hand in
con las
hand
espaldas del
with
dinero
the
para
other.
aguantar ese tiempo, ¿no?
You need
Una vez
enough
que
money
has
to be
tenido que
patient.
pasar esa etapa de paciencia que has analizado el
Once
mercado,
you've been
pues,
through that
claro,
state
lo
of
que has buscado
patience,
a lo mejor
that you have
los
analyzed
compañeros de viaje
the
adecuados,
market, that
las
you have
ciudades
found
adecuadas,
the right
pues lógicamente todo es mucho más fácil, ¿no?
travel buddies, then everything becomes easier.
Luego sí es importante que una vez dentro, con independencia
It's important
de que
that
por supuesto
once
tienes que llevar siempre por delante
you're
tu
there,
valor agregado de empresa multinacional,
of course, you
con
must be
experiencia,
part
etcétera,
of
etcétera,
this
con unos servicios
multinational
centrales potentes.
company,
Al final tienes
strong,
que es muy importante
central
también que se te vea
services.
con cultura, sobre todo en los países latinoamericanos, con cultura
But
de que quieres
especially
permanecer.
in Latin American countries,
Y de
you
que-
need
y de
to
que has venido para
transmit
quedarte.
that
Si
you are
una
there to
empresa te viene a
stay.
hacer un proyecto y con
If
alta
you
relación
see
pues probablemente
a
los
business,
obstáculos serán mayores.
if they realize that
Eso,
you're a
bueno,
company that
pues,
just wants to
tienes
say,
que tener
finish the project and return, then it's not going to be so easy.
de gente tuya de la casa de siempre de España.
So you need to surround yourself
a profesionales locales.
with people from home, but you need to give responsibilities to local people. You need to work together with the local companies
Casi como tal,
so they can see you as one of them.
el valor agregado de ser multinacional.
And that's the other value of being a
Luego, por
multinational
supuesto,
company.
Adaptarte con los mejores asesores locales. Mucho que-
And of
que
course, you
tengamos
need
un
to adapt
abogado
with the
defienda la
best
democracia y al
local
final,
counsel.
ten en cuenta en los países latinoamericanos
For instance, lawyers in Latin American countries. You need to adapt to the bureaucracy, which is quite complicated. It's absolutely a need to have local advice. They're telling me we don't have much time. Well, I think this topic has a lot more things we could talk about, but we're out of time. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for your comments. I think this roundtable was quite interesting, and we had a lot to offer. And thank you to everyone who is listening.
Bienvenidos de nuevo a Madrid Platform. Continuamos con el Seminario Internacional de Infraestructuras y Edificación Sostenible. Después de la primera mesa redonda, llega el turno de la segunda, en la que, por supuesto, y como no podía ser de otra manera, nos vamos a centrar en la sostenibilidad. El título de esta mesa redonda se titula El futuro del sector, sostenibilidad e innovación, y para ella vamos a contar con Manuel Borrás, que es director de desarrollo de ACCI, con Manuel Olivares, que es director de América y de Estudios y Contratación de FCC, con Ignacio Calvo, que es director de Innovación de Acciona, y con David Sánchez Baranda, que es director de la Delegación de Madrid de Construcía. Y para moderar tenemos con nosotros otra vez a David García Núñez, presidente de Madrid Capital Mundial de la Construcción y director de Comunicación de FCC. Bienvenidos a todos y todo vuestro.
Muchísimas gracias por la presentación. Y gracias a todas las personas que nos están viendo.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for everyone who's watching us on the streaming. I would like to thank all the companies that are here today for their active participation in this roundtable that I think is important. We need to talk about the future of the sector through sustainability and innovation. And I think I have here some of the best actors to talk about this topic. I would like to start with Manuel. Besides being the director for America, he is the director of construction. He is a good friend of mine. We fought many battles together. I would like to ask you, in your wide experience in the company, what are the opportunities of multilateralism in the whole infrastructure project? I'd like to thank Madrid Platform for inviting us to be here today. And thank you for those who are listening to us through the streaming. Regarding multilateral organizations, I think they are key in the opportunities that they can offer to the infrastructure sector. Well, those organisms help to mitigate some of the credit risks that investors in infrastructures can see that they are under certain circumstances. Which circumstances? Well, uncertainty times, like huge economic crises like the one we're suffering today due to COVID-19. Us in infrastructure companies feel much more comfortable in projects that are funded by multilateral organisms and multilateral banks. Why? We have legal safety in all of our projects. Besides legal security, we feel safe that the project is going to reach an end due to the funding of these multilateral organizations. And lastly, because the assurance of a transparent tender process. Regarding sustainability, those organizations need to take into account that the choice of projects is done, taking into account that they must be sustainable. These sustainable projects are the basis of the SDGs, and it's compulsory that we follow the SDGs for choosing our projects. Alberto, when I think of ADVI, I think about trains. As a business development director at ADVI, what does multilateral offer? And why are you within those types of projects? Other European countries receive backing of their own governments. Germany, UK, France, financially support their companies if needs be. That forces us to collaborate with this financial entities, so they're key for us. We don't go into public tenders that are not backed by multilateral funds. Well, it's a safety net, as Manuel said. David Santabaranda. Oh, the Madrid delegate for Construcción. I see Construcción, I see circular economy and infrastructure. What does it add for you? Well, circular economy is the philosophy of our company. We are all in. Regarding these multilateral organizations, they allow us to grow. We need to take advantage of those opportunities in order for them to fund infrastructure projects in Europe and abroad. There's very little support in Spain to companies like us, and we need to find it elsewhere. The Asian Bank for Infrastructure has given huge amounts to develop projects in Asia. It's funded by China and us. We need bigger support by Spanish and European institutions. Ignacio Calvo, Innovation Director at Acciona. When we talk about Acciona, we're talking about sustainable infrastructure. What is, for Acciona, the possibility to concur in this type of projects and multilateral? Well, I don't want to say things again, but I fully agree with what my colleagues said. Those tender processes that are well structured. Well, these organizations make it easier. They have these processes that are well structured, and they have been used many times in other projects. They're clear, transparent, and they mainly help these local administrations or these state administrations to become more professional, more organized. It's not that they're not professional, but they need this extra organization. We can help them during this process. We can inform them during the management of these projects. And lastly, what I think is an added value is that the fact that these multilateral organizations exist allow for an elevation of standards. So that makes us be more competitive. I fully agree. I'm going to the second question. I would like to call out all the investors, personnel that are watching us from Latin America. This is a forum to attract investment to Madrid as a connecting bridge to Europe from Latin America, and the other way around. José Manuel, at FCCC, what is our presence? I consider myself, of course, a member of our company. What is our presence in infrastructure projects in LATAM currently, and what's the strategy that we're following there? As FCC, we began 30 years ago. We are fully present in Latin America. It's a strategic place for us. Where are we and what projects we have? Well, we have permanent presence in Mexico. We have a big stakeholder that is from Mexico, obviously. We're working on the second stage of the Maya train, which is a huge process, a huge project. We're building the subway in Lima, Peru, and also the subway line in Panama. We also have offices in Colombia, where we have finished several projects over the last 30 years. And right now we have a key project, the tunnel of El Toyo, with over $400 million investment. And we're very active in Chile as well. We're looking closely at the concession market in Chile and Colombia, and we're participating in trains and bridges in Chile in projects for the MOP. We hope to keep participating on important projects that will come along in the future. We have very active participation in several processes and construction of plants for combined cycles. In Mexico, we have the desire to participate, and we want to keep being active in Chile and Colombia and any other further opportunities that may arise, and that will guarantee, as we said before, safety, transparency conditions. Thank you, Manuel.
For Manuel Borras, what projects are you working on right now in Latin America, and what are your perspectives in the region? Well, Avi started the first project abroad in Chile with a concession, and that's where we're still at, under a concession scheme. We're in Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, and Mexico. In Mexico, we also built part of the Mayan Highway, and we have an important presence. It's an important country for our company. Chile, still under a concession scheme. We have 3 concessions in ports, in logistical areas. We also have an airport under concession, and we feel very comfortable under that umbrella of concessions, and we have a fair commitment towards concessions also in Mexico. And as was said in the previous roundtable, we are growing in the countries where we feel comfortable and decreasing our presence in the countries where we don't feel as comfortable. As you can see, or as the people who are watching can see, there is a strong link between Latin American and Spanish construction company, and this is not something that has to do with the crisis in 2008. It goes well before that. For Construcía, in addition to the presence that you may have in Latin America, what is the value that you can add regarding circular economy for these projects? Well, the truth is we came in a bit late regarding presence in Latam, because we did have presence in Uruguay and Brazil, but we were there in 2005 and in 2009 we decided to leave Latin America. But we have the intention of going back to Latin America. In Mexico, Panama, and Chile are attractive markets to us, and we want to go there. But it's true that right now we are mainly focused in Europe with a capital fund in Paris, and we would also like to expand our activities to Italy. What we can provide is a change in which constructions are envisaged. We are strong advocates of circular economies, where we propose having zero waste, where we encourage people to build with non-toxic materials, and we are strongly advocates of this. We like to tell people that we're pioneers in circular economy in Southern Europe, and this has allowed us to have this fund from Paris and from the Paris City Council in order to build green infrastructures for Paris 2024. So your idea is to build zero-waste infrastructures. Yes, our idea is to convince clients that there are 2 ways of seeing construction, the traditional way and circular economy approach. And what we want is for people to understand this notion and bet for it. In the end, what we try to avoid is seeking raw materials abroad. What we try is that our buildings are our own. We have a pool of resources in our cities that we can use to that end. Acciona, as innovation director, in addition to being present in Latin America, 2 tips with regards to a project that you're developing right now and which had value to our sector. Well, I will start with Acciona, not just the construction company, but the group as a whole, because we are firm advocates of stabilization, and we follow the same philosophy that my other colleagues, where we feel comfortable, we want to grow, and in other countries where we don't feel as comfortable, we tend to reduce our presence. We're in Brazil with the largest work that we've done on ourselves, over 33 million, over 16 kilometers of metro line, 13 stations, one of them at a depth of 70 meters deep. It's very complicated, and then we go to Ecuador, another subway, Quito Metro. In Mexico, we have another line out of 6,500 kilometers in total of this project that is being implemented by the new government. We also have projects in Panama with the Children's Hospital, over 700 beds, with a large parking space, a part of the Pan American road to widen the access, so extending one of the senses of the road and expanding it. And in Chile, we just finished the first thermosolar plant. It's the first one in Latin America with over 250, a tower of 250 meters. And of course, the Amarga Amarga Hospital. And here I would like to stress that one of the largest modules, the crib area, is made by women, built by women. Going back to the integration notion that you talked about before in the previous roundtable, we need to integrate with the societies where we go, and that's an example of what we're doing right now. Now, examples of innovation. Very briefly, to go to the following question. There, we could talk about 2 phases of innovation. One is strongly focused on a circular economy, reclaiming and reusing all those waste. We know our waste, we know how to use it, but also we want to use waste from other industries, because we think that working with those waste, even if we cannot combine them, we've managed to turn a waste that would go to a dump to be used for other purposes. And in Panama and in Brazil, we've done this, and there's innovation in those countries. But going to technologies that we've developed in Europe but are not known in Latin America, there we want to create or to provide some kind of awareness or training where we explain to them that formulas that have been applied in Europe can work in Latin America. Thank you, Ignacio, for your explanation. Now, you've been working for a long time in America. You know Latam by heart. You have an authorized voice regarding this question. With regard to this question, it's true. Latin America has decreased its pace. Spain has ridden that wave And it's now coming, it has slowed down. But since our time is limited and we've been indicated by the crew that we need to wrap up, why do you think this has happened? Why do you think the pace has decreased? And what does Latin America need in terms of infrastructure? And this is a question for everyone. Okay, we'll try to be very brief. It's no secret that Latin America and all its economic indicators showed huge growth. Some of them were under zero in terms of debt, but with the COVID pandemic, this is no longer the case. But once you hit button, you can only go up. So I think this is a good opportunity for governments to start investing in their own infrastructures. Now, where should they invest in terms of infrastructure? If you need to think about that, I would say in the infrastructures that you kind of missed during the pandemic, mainly hospitals. There was and there still is lack of hospitals, water treatment plants, communications. So I think there's a great opportunity that, if performed correctly, could be an opportunity for all the companies that are present there. And governments, after this critical period, are determined to create employment, and there's a lot of economic activity around those projects. So I would like to send an optimistic message and say that we will hopefully find our place there, and I hope that they deliver on these planning promises. Yes, and the things that Spanish construction companies are leaders, or number one in all the rankings. We are amongst the 50 companies in the world competing with Chinese companies, so I think construction is a tractor factor here. Manuel, in your opinion, also a consolidated opinion, and your opinion as a representative of ASBI, the pace has slowed down in Latin America. But where would you put the accent? Where would you emphasize? Well, allow me to talk about sustainability for 1 minute, and then I'll answer your question. We think that up until recently, the assessment of offers was limited to the construction timelines. But lastly, the assessment of offers is not only based on that, but also on the life cycle. It's still limited to the construction itself. We think that in the future, there are other parameters to be taken into consideration, such as sustainability costs. We think that we need to embrace that as real costs of the work, and we're working on that line. Now, regarding the needs for infrastructures in Latin America, I concur, because the COVID crisis has evidenced the lack of hospitals, for example, and public transport capabilities as well. So what we were talking about before, infrastructures that improve connectivity in addition to healthcare infrastructures. For Construcía, well, in my experience in Latin America and taken from a more global perspective, I do think that what lacks in Latin America is what we need is less protectionist markets. Because Brazil is a market that barely gives some space for investment. They are protective of what they have. They have all the natural resources, the raw materials that are required. I think Brazil, for example, also needs political stability, and Latin America in general needs that. A legal protective legal framework for the companies who invest, technological development as well. In the previous roundtables, we've said that Spain is at the forefront of technological development, and when we go to Latin America, we find some kind of shock. We see 4G, 5G lines, but there are some developments that are still lacking. We see in Sao Paulo amazing possibilities of amazing examples of needs that need to be tackled. And going back to the Brazil experience, and here we need to give all the honors, the credit to Lula. In Brazil, there were two classes, a poor class and a rich class. Lula consolidated a middle class in Brazil, and that is what creates a pool of attraction or a focal point that is attractive to investors. I concur with the analysis that Manolo made, where he said that prior to the COVID crisis, LATAM was starting to slow down. We saw how biddings started to be more rare, and with the COVID pandemic, some countries have just closed their doors for months, and we haven't been able to execute our works or the projects that were underway. All of them came to a halt, but I would like to send a positive message, because due to this paralyzation, this halt of the economy, many governments in Latin America have launched infrastructure plans to push all this development. And I think that the potential of the market in terms of transport, mobility, hospitals, all those infrastructure plans that need to be materialized but have been already announced by the various governments in Chile, in Mexico, or in Peru. What would be necessary, in my opinion, in addition to that, to those infrastructure plans, are good projects, good feasibility studies, sustainability studies, and that doesn't mean that is not the work of one government. It's the work of many administrations and governments. And this development should not be dependent on a single administration. We need to think in the long term. This is not the case for LATAM. We can apply this to any other continent or government. And something that is even more difficult that would be food for thought is create trust amongst consumers. We need to create policies so that investors feel interested in coming in to invest in these countries. Since we don't have time for another question, we only have 2 minutes left. I would like to ask you to give me a headline very quickly. And I will start with you, Ignacio. What is LATAM for you? To me, Latin America is the future. So I'd like to hear your opinion about this. What's Latin America for you? Because Madrid platform is it's a hub for attracting investment, to use Madrid as a focal point for investment, and also to visibilize the work of construction companies and the potential in Latin America. So what is Latin America to you? In a headline. That's very difficult. It's an opportunity to making progress in innovation and sustainability. Thank you. Well, I think it's a great market of opportunities and investments, fundamental to Spain due to our shared cultural links. Manuel Borrás? I would say the moment when Latin America recovers is an opportunity to replicate what we did in Spain 15 years ago and what we did successfully, I must say. So it will be the perfect moment to replicate that model. Yes, and many countries have copied that, and Ferrovial has said that, and Sacyr said that as well. And we were talking about that earlier. They've copied they've scaled our model. Well, just to insist, the word opportunity, let's say the word opportunity, Latin America is opportunity, but also private investment in association with public administrations. So PPPs are fundamental because we need to explore both the private sector, the public administration, and multilateral banks. So thank you all very much to all the members of the panel, the round table, and yes, thank you for the reminder. I forget to look at the camera. Well, thank you very much for these interventions and all the members of the previous roundtable and the first presentation. And thank you for having this forward-looking approach in a sector as strategic as construction that in the end gives us roads, dams that we need as society here in Spain, but also in Latin America, to making progress. See you back in 15 minutes.